There is an ongoing EU project named Support, where we are a stakeholder. This project aims to enhance security in European ports, and more than 250 different and possible threats were identified. Lucky enough, ports and ships have not been involved in bigger terrorist acts, but we should never think that this never could happen. Just think about piracy outside Somalia. This is organized crime, and the purpose is to take ransom for money, and they succeed to do that. It seems very easy to hijack a ship and hard to defend it, although more armed forces are used. What if a terrorist should hijack a ship like a gas tanker or a cruise ship? Not for money and for ransom, but for other reasons. I don't think any of us would like to see a scenario like that. Bin Laden is dead, but others will follow. All security work starts with an assessment. Yes, you have to update your assessment annually due to the ISPS code, but do the assessment not only because of the code, but also with the company and the port itself in mind. You might come to another conclusion about security in the end. Many ports and operators are very good to do risk assessments, but unfortunately there is also many that haven't done a proper assessment and because of this focus their security on the wrong things. Some ports do just the security the way they always have done, or a state of art, instead of focus on the important and individual needs they have. No port is like the other one because of different aspects. Like this one you can see over here. This is one example, the port of Rotterdam. Biggest port in Europe where Securitas do 70% of all security in the port facilities. Or the small port of Karaholmen, very far away in the Norwegian fjord with their special security situation. They both have to apply to the ISPS code. In fact, we provide security to more than 1,400 port facilities around the world, individuals set up to meet their individual needs. Another thing is the type of port facility. There are basic aspects to security in all of these ports, but of course there is a difference between the security in an oil and gas terminal and a ferry terminal. Yet another aspect to port security is its port management and owner structure. In some countries, port security is provided by a combination of military and police forces. In other countries, it is completely commercial arrangement where private operators and enterprises hire security companies to provide port security. Also everything in between. The assessment should look at all the possible and individual threats in a wide perspective. The security should be a very cost-efficient way of maintaining the business and the flow in the port in a secure and safe way, taking every aspect into account. Unfortunately, sometimes the security in a port is more like a tiger written on a paper and put away in a safe somewhere. It's more like a cosmetic approach and empty promises instead of something really efficient and down to earth. This is a picture I really like. No, it's not from Sweden, and no, it's not from a port, but it really illustrates what I like to say. Is it possible to circumvent security? Of course it is. Criminals and organized crime is always looking for a way to use the port and its procedures and people for their own purposes and to make money, as much money and as quick as possible. And it seems easy because we make it easy for them. One of security's most important tasks in the port with its security officers and port workers is to be vigilant and find the gaps in the security procedures and correct them. It's a chess game and also a never-ending game, I would say, between criminals and security. That's why it's important never to settle down and think you are ready, because if you think like that, that is really the fact when the time when a port is most vulnerable. The goal of maritime security in general is to safeguard the ship, the crew and passengers, cargo, port facilities and other relevant properties and infrastructure from attacks by terrorists and criminal acts. In this presentation, I will not focus too much on technical security. Being a security professional, I love all kinds of technical equipment that can help, and there is so much good things out there that can enhance security, but also some not so good things. I will more focus on the role of the security officer in this presentation. One of the most important tasks regarding port security is to have a clear vision about what to achieve, a written and by the board in the port or the operator approved security policy. Then to transmit this policy into instructions to the security company and into procedures, routines and checklists that continuously are renewed. Something very basic to many of you, I'm sure, but my experience is that too many ports fail to do this in a structured and efficient way. The ISPS code stipulates, according to Chapter 18, that every people working in a port facility should have education about security issues. Not only security officer and the port facility's security officer himself, but also the port workers. There are unfortunately no international standard to provide port security training, and we have to rely on best practice from country to country or from port to port. And to be frank, this is two categories of workers, the port workers and the security officer, that can be an asset to prevent security incidents, but unfortunately also a threat to the security. They know everything about procedures and routines and can be victims to organized crime and can infiltrate and hook them for their own purposes. Unfortunately, there are a lot of bad examples of that. Make sure you do what you can to be proactive and make background checks, drug tests, criminal records, and whatever is possible according to national law. A serious security company only puts tested and well-educated and trained officers with the best equipment on site. In Europe, we are trying to raise the standard of the security industry, regardless of company, by COAS. Something I said about COAS into the introduction. It's the business of private security in Europe. I'm a member of the Maritime Security Working Committee and have, together with a person from a Dutch company, produced a basic 2-day training where all security companies, also our competitors, can learn about port security. It's a basic training. In fact, when I'm going back to Europe, I'm going to be an instructor in a trainer seminar in Antwerp. Of course, my company has a bigger and more in-depth training to our officer, but this is the way of sharing knowledge about port security to the benefit of the security industry in total. Apart from education, I think it's very important that the security company makes internal audits and shows the result to the port in aim to have continuous improvement according to ISO standards. The port itself should also in a regular way test the security company and the task they have got to make sure everything works according to the instruction. Again, let's be frank, if nothing happens, people doesn't take the task as they should and slow down in their efforts. If they face tests, drills and exercises, they must prove that they are still alert and ready. I also think it's important to have a rotation system to officers on different positions and let them have different duties to make the work more interesting and to let them learn new things. Think about it yourself. If you were standing at the gate for maybe 12 hours, would you be able to do it? Now to a dilemma. This is the industry dilemma. A problem to the security providers in general. To be a security officer is a low-status job, most often very paid to the individual person. The turnover of officers can sometimes in some companies be very high because of this. They see their job as temporary until they can have something better. Then new ones have to be recruited, trained and put into place. Of course, this means that the experience vanishes and the quality can be threatened. This is a bad downward trend to port security, but there are solutions to this. If a proper assessment is made, technical systems is used and operated by a security officer, the task means a variation of work and it's possible to make a career. People will stay longer, turnover personnel will be lower, wages will rise and the quality of security in general will be better. This is something we have been able to do in the north of Europe, where a security officer earns as much as a normal industry worker. Turnover of officers are very low due to the fact that they are highly qualified, have a very interesting job, the status are high, and they really want to do a job and feel proud about it. This is how I can think we can change everything. Port security has in some countries been devoted to terminal operators. They are, for the most part, private enterprises. They obey two preliminary authorities, their stakeholders and their executive board. These two authorities have only one combined aim,